I'm Mark Rossetti. I'm a software engineer focused on iterative design and agile development. And this is Lisa Ratner, a user research expert and user design expert, who will be talking about that aspect of this. So this morning we want to talk about BizPort a little bit, and I know that you all have the brochures on the table, and a couple of speakers, including Heather right before us, have spoken about it a little bit. But I want to tell you how we built it and what the principles were that allowed us to create a site that works a little bit differently in government. So we're two members of a three-member team. I also want to call out that our third member, Patrick McDonald, is here in the crowd and is helping to document the event today. So also chat with him a little bit if you have time. All right, let's get right into it. So we are from Code for America. Code for America is a nonprofit up in San Francisco that works with local governments across the country, including the city of Long Beach, to improve the quality of government services. And the way that we do that is that we send teams of fellows, so 3 fellows, on site for 1 year to be in a city and to work alongside city staff to imagine how services can work differently, and then build prototypes that demonstrate those principles. So Code for America has 7 major principles. Now that's a lot to digest. Don't worry about reading all of that text. There are 3 things that we're going to focus on today. The first is designing for people's needs. The second is building capacity through collaboration of many different stakeholders. And the third is using data to make and improve decisions. So let's talk about that first one, designing for people's needs. What does that mean? So in government, there is a very common pattern of having a process where policy is set. So we declare we are going to have businesses get licensed. And then from there, we design a process. Okay, so we're going to have them fill out a form, and they're going to put this information on the form, and then they get a license. And then we build systems around that for how to store and process that form. And then the users get it. And then the system doesn't change a whole lot, and it can stay the same way for a decade or 2. Consider the opposite. So what if users instead are the beginning of this design process? What if instead we say, all right, well, how do you engage with services that you use? Well, most of the time you're pulling out your phone. You know, if you're going to call an Uber or a Lyft, or if you're going to look something up online, you're going to start with your phone. Or maybe you start by making a phone call, or maybe you start by walking in. Whatever your pattern is, we want to start by observing that and then saying, okay, well, we need to build a service that supports your normal habits. And then build systems that allow that service to work the way that it should. So those are kind of opposite concepts. So instead of reasoning from policy down to a particular system, we want to start in the middle of this. Start with, what does the user want? And then find the software that supports that, the operations that support that, and the policies that make all of that possible. So it's a very different way of thinking. So some of you, if you've done project management in government, may be familiar with Waterfall as a method of building a project. This means starting at the beginning and saying, okay, we're going to set out the specifications for this project based upon the research that we do at the beginning. Then we're going to build it one time, and then we're going to test it and release it, and then probably not touch it again. So while the beginning of this is actually very good because it does start with writing clear specifications, the problem is that it's one huge bet. It's one huge bet that you're going to get it right the first time, and that may not be true. It may be even if you were perfectly correct at the beginning, by the time you spend 1 year or 2 years or 5 years doing the implementation, at the end when you release what you finished, time has passed and the needs may have changed. So this is actually a big bet to place and can be a dangerous way to do product management. So I want to show you an alternative to that. The alternative is an iterative process. So why are there cakes on this slide? Well, let me tell you. So imagine Waterfall being something like walking into the kitchen and saying, I'm going to bake a wedding cake on my first try. That's a big project. You better hope that the cake tastes good. The alternative is, all right, I'm not very good at making cakes, or this is new to me, but I'm going to make the smallest cake I can, a whole bunch of them, and then take them out and give them to people and see what they think. So we're going to make, We're going to try out a particular bread, a particular frosting, certain sprinkles. It's going to be a complete product. We're not just giving people frosting and saying, what do you think about this frosting? It's still going to be a complete cake. It's just the smallest possible cake. And then if they like the cupcakes, then we make birthday cakes. If they don't like it, well, then we throw out all the cupcakes, and what did we lose? We lost an afternoon in the kitchen. It's not a big deal. If you throw out a wedding cake, that's a much bigger loss. So that is a big contrast between shooting straight for the wedding cake and then scaling up your cake as your confidence grows. It means that, ultimately, we want to find the minimum viable product. So this is a little catchphrase that gets tossed around. MVP, or a pilot, is another term for it. So what's the smallest possible cake? And we decided it was a cupcake. In terms of agile development, a cupcake is going to pretty much always include these pieces. You're going to start with, excuse me, middle of a cold. You're going to start with measuring what's going on in the world. So talking to users, watching what they do, asking them what they want. And then you're going to learn from that, assign some tasks, figure out an exact plan of action, and then build something from it. So this is surveying people and saying, do you like vanilla cake or chocolate cake? And then learning from that, okay, well, we think most people like vanilla, let's build that. Okay, well, let's go to the store and buy the vanilla stuff, and then let's make some vanilla cupcakes. So there's a risk in business as usual. There's a risk in making these huge bets. It's actually more dangerous to do all the planning up front before the users see it than it is to take these small steps. So iterative development, iterative user-centered development is about lowering the risk for product development at the same time as making customers happier. And that's a pretty killer combination. So now I'm going to turn things over to Lisa to talk a little more about BizPort specifically and the work that we've done this year based on this process and how that's looked for users in the city of Long Beach.
Thanks, Mark. So again, I'm Lisa. I'm the user researcher, and I'm going to discuss all the research that we did and what we're calling the discovery phase. So as Mark just mentioned, our goal here is to really lower risk. And one of the ways that we do that is to make sure that we're talking to all the folks that we need to talk to. So entrepreneurs, city staff, stakeholders, the SBDC, all the folks, and really understand what those collective pain points. And also, while Code for America came in to conduct a lot of that research, we worked a lot with the I-Team and with CSU Long Beach, which Heather just went over some of the research that they did. And collectively, we heard from over 200 entrepreneurs and tons of city staff. So it was quite an extensive discovery phase. So I want to introduce a concept called service design, which is where we look at all the different touch points that the entrepreneur has with city government. And so this image shows the entrepreneur right over there having an idea, trying to find answers to the questions that he or she has and getting kind of confused. And then reaching out to city staff spending a few hours each day answering fairly basic questions such as, how do I apply for a business license? How much does it cost? Or directing that customer to different departments if they don't know the answer. And then once they do identify what the answer is for the entrepreneur, the problem is that that information doesn't get reflected back into the website. And therefore, when the next entrepreneur comes through, they keep asking the same basic questions. And this really takes up a lot of time for the customer service folks and for the city departments. They're really bogged down with a lot of these basic questions. And so as you can see, this is a graph. Now we have the gray represents the consistent stasis level of basic questions that are getting asked. There's not really hope for a reduction of those questions. And the entrepreneur's experience remains about the same as well. It's hard to improve that experience without making sure that all of our materials really reflect the evolving needs that they have. And so, so that's the original broken feedback system. Our system, which patches those gaps, will reduce the number of basic questions that city staff gets bogged down with and increase the entrepreneur's satisfaction. And so here's service design with the gaps patched up. We have the entrepreneur over here. And most of the questions are answered through our website, BizPort. If there is a question, they can click on the Help Chat button in the corner. And we all encourage you guys to look at BizPort on your phones today and send us a question just to test it out, see how it works. And then we analyze all the questions that come through, and we see what kind of insights can we glean from this interaction. Wow, we're getting a ton of questions about renewing a business license. This is really coming up quite frequently. Or we're getting some questions that may not come up that frequently, but are quite severe and show, oh no, there's a really big problem that somebody's having. We need to fix that. And so the key here is that we take those insights and we make sure that those get reflected in the website. And that way we can have a better experience for all the entrepreneurs that come through next. So through all of our research, through this discovery phase, we came up with about 70 pain points that entrepreneurs and city staff were having collectively. And the number one pain point was that ultimately government websites get stale, and that's really the issue. Everything else kind of points back to that. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is that there's this notion with government websites of, oh, when is it going to be done? And that's just not really a thing. It's like saying, when is Long Beach going to be done? When are they going to be done building Long Beach? Well, never. A city evolves, and websites need to evolve with that. And so that's why when we were constructing this cupcake, it needed to not just be the website. When we originally came in, we were tasked with build a website, build a hub that will house all this information. But like Heather Barker said from CSU Long Beach, we really needed to question the question, and that was through our discovery phase. And that's where we really identified the problem being, well, it's a maintenance issue more than building the thing to begin with. And so we needed to make sure that whatever we came up with, it was truly a system, not just a business portal, but a business portal system that continued to evolve based on the lessons that we gleaned from interactions with users. So I'm going to walk you through our system. BizPort, which is a big part of it. So when we first constructed BizPort, we put it together fairly quickly based on the research that we had, and we put it out there quickly. So we got it into the hands of users. We got them testing it out. And we've already heard some tweets so far, some of the entrepreneurs that saw the first iteration. They're like, wow, it's really changed. It's really evolved since I first saw it. Exactly. That's exactly what we want. So from there, we were able to measure what those experiences were like for the entrepreneurs, for city staff. And we did this, again, by looking at the questions that came through our help chat. We also have a survey on there. And we did tons of user testing in person, so we could watch and we could see where are they getting tripped up, where are the usability issues. We also constructed an analytics platform so that we could look at all the data that was coming in. And we put together an analytics club, which drew stakeholders from all the different siloed departments, as well as community groups such as the SBDC, the BIDS, CSU Long Beach, to come together, which is the collective impact model, and look at how we can move those metrics, and how can we assign responsibility and tasks to help make progress. And another thing we did in this assign section is that we wrote a job description for a project manager to help maintain this program for when we leave and make sure that maintenance is constantly in mind and that BizPort should not go stale. I'm going to pass this back to Mark.
So I have a lot of fun with this slide. I really enjoy looking at this because it's such a cool document of how things have changed over the course of the year. So on the left there, that's BizPort just a few weeks after we did our initial research phase. We built it in a very short amount of time. It only had 7 pages that were just the bare bones of what an entrepreneur might want to know. And we got it out there and we just started asking people, hey, what do you think? What's missing? And we knew there was a lot missing. It was a little awkward, but getting it out there and hearing it from people was really important before we invested a lot of time that had an uncertain outcome. And their feedback was invaluable. So that led us to the second one. We ended up adding so many pages that we had to split them into categories. Thank you. That we had to split them into categories: plan, apply, and launch. And then from there, we continued to explore what else needed to happen. And we discovered that accessibility was really important. We needed to understand that there was enough content, people needed to search, so we added search. There were a lot of people for whom English was not their native language, so we added really prominent translation feature on the homepage and on other pages. That accessibility in terms of people's familiarity with web interfaces was also an issue, so we changed the menu icon to the word menu. We made sure that the colors were appropriate for those who might be colorblind, and tons of other adaptations. And we're continuing to work from there. So this is where we are. This is a screenshot taken, I don't know, not long ago, probably in the last week. But things will continue to change. We invite you to check out bizport.longbeach.gov, and we invite you to give us your feedback as well. And please do trust that your feedback will lead to continued change and continued growth of this site. And that's a pretty special thing. You'll notice on every single page there is an icon like that icon in the bottom right corner, and you can reach out to us at that icon if you have questions about starting a business or if you have questions about the site itself, and we will respond and we will listen. So that is always a way to reach us, and that's a very important inbound source of user feedback for us, among other sources. So there we have it. Bizport on the left, the site itself that you can hold in your hand. And on the right, all of the system that makes that site possible, that keeps it relevant, that keeps it connective with the community of business owners and entrepreneurs, that keeps us responsive to user needs. That's the business portal system. We are hugely grateful for the people that we worked with this year throughout, from sponsors to city staff across so many departments to so many community members as well, that have just been invaluable to helping us reach users, give their opinions, give their support. So thank you to all of you who have helped make Bizport possible.